My dear brothers and sisters, let me ask you something honestly. When was the last time you made dua without fear pushing you to it? Not because something went wrong, not because you felt desperate, but because you trusted Allah enough to place the matter in His hands and stop gripping it so tightly. Many of us pray only when pressure becomes unbearable. Then we wonder why our hearts still feel restless even after making dua. Let me say this clearly without softening the message. Not every dua is meant to change your situation immediately. Some duas are meant to change how much control you think you have. There is a simple dua that works quietly, and before this message ends, you will understand why those who hold on to it stop panicking even before their problems disappear, and that understanding alone can change how you walk into tomorrow. The heart was never created to carry control. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the quietest causes of exhaustion in our lives is not hardship itself, but the belief that we must manage everything perfectly. Many people feel tired without understanding why. They sleep, yet they wake up drained. They make dua, yet their chest still feels tight. The reason is simple but uncomfortable to admit. The heart was never created to carry control. It was created to carry trust. Allah did not ask you to solve every outcome, calculate every possibility, or protect yourself from every future pain. He asked you to take the next right step and rely on Him with what comes after. But when the heart takes on a role that belongs to Allah alone, it begins to strain under a weight it cannot handle. That strain slowly turns into worry, restlessness, and constant mental noise. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. This is why a simple dua can be more powerful than long words spoken in desperation. The quiet dua does not argue with reality. It does not demand timelines. It does not try to force relief. Instead, it gently returns responsibility to where it belongs. It says, I have done what I can and I trust you with what I cannot. And the moment the heart releases control, even slightly, something begins to shift, not always around you, but within you. When trust replaces control, patience becomes easier. When trust replaces control, fear loses its grip. And when trust replaces control, the heart finally finds rest, not because every problem disappeared, but because it is no longer carrying what Allah never asked it to carry in the first place. The quiet dua that reorders the heart. One of the reasons this simple dua changes everything quietly is because it does not begin with asking for outcomes. It begins with asking for the heart to be put back in its correct place. Many people rush to ask Allah to remove the problem, but they skip the most important step, which is asking Allah to steady the heart that is facing the problem. A restless heart can turn even small tests into heavy burdens, while a grounded heart can carry great trials with dignity and calm. This is why the dua that works quietly does not excite emotions, but it stabilizes faith. When you repeat it sincerely, you are not telling Allah what to do. You are reminding yourself who is in control. You are slowly teaching your heart to stop demanding certainty and start accepting reliance. Over time, this reordering becomes visible in your reactions. You stop panicking as quickly. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios. You stop exhausting yourself with questions that have no answers yet. Not because life became easy, but because your heart became anchored. The dua itself is simple yet profound in meaning. It is the dua of placing trust back where it belongs. Allahumma inni fawwadtu amri ilayk, fala takalluni ila nafsi turfatin ayn. When a believer says this, they are not declaring weakness, they are declaring clarity. They are saying, Ya Allah, I have reached the limit of my ability and I now return the matter fully to you. This is not surrender in defeat. This is surrender in faith. And Allah loves when His servant knows when to stop struggling alone and start relying correctly. What makes this dua powerful is consistency, not emotion. Said once, it brings comfort. Said regularly, it reshapes the heart. With time, you begin to notice that situations no longer shake you the way they used to. Delays feel lighter. Uncertainty feels manageable. Even unanswered prayers feel purposeful. That is when you realize the dua has been working quietly all along, not by changing the world around you, but by strengthening the world within you. And when the heart is reordered, when trust replaces control, and when reliance replaces fear, Allah opens doors in ways that do not exhaust you. Relief comes without chaos, guidance comes without confusion, and peace arrives without announcement. That is the beauty of a dua that works quietly. It does not rush change, it prepares you to receive it. One of the greatest challenges people face today is not a single problem, but a constant state of inner pressure. The heart rarely feels still. Even when life appears stable on the outside, the mind remains busy and the chest feels tight. Many people are not exhausted because they are doing too much, but because their hearts are carrying fear, uncertainty, and responsibility all at once. This is why relief often feels far away, even for those who pray regularly. In moments like these, Allah does not always remove the difficulty immediately. Instead, He offers protection for the heart through remembrance. When the heart remembers Allah consistently, it begins to settle even before circumstances change. This is not an emotional idea. This is a divine promise. Allah says in the Quran, "Ala bidhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub." This verse does not say that remembrance removes every problem. It says that remembrance brings peace to the heart, and that peace is what allows a believer to carry difficulty without being crushed by it. The quiet dua works hand in hand with dhikr. When you repeat simple words of remembrance throughout the day, your heart slowly stops reacting to life as if everything is an emergency. Fear loses its urgency. Overthinking loses its grip. The heart begins to understand that it is not alone in managing what lies ahead. This is why people who engage in regular dhikr may still face hardship, but they face it with steadiness rather than panic. One of the most powerful forms of quiet remembrance is when the believer repeatedly says, with presence and humility, "Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illa hu." These words are not just spoken for comfort, they are spoken as a declaration. They remind the heart that whatever it fears has already been accounted for by Allah. When a person says this consistently, they are not escaping responsibility. They are placing responsibility where it belongs. Effort remains, but fear is released. In a world where people are constantly imagining worst case scenarios, dhikr interrupts that pattern. It stops the mind from running endlessly toward loss. It redirects attention away from imagined futures and brings it back to trust. Over time, the heart learns a new habit. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" it learns to say, "Allah is already aware." That shift alone protects the heart from unnecessary suffering. This is why the quiet dua and dhikr are so powerful together. One teaches surrender, the other reinforces it. One returns the matter to Allah, the other keeps the heart anchored there. Slowly, without noise or drama, the believer begins to feel lighter. Not because answers arrived, but because the heart stopped carrying questions it was never meant to answer. When dhikr becomes part of daily life, the believer no longer measures peace by how easy life feels. Peace becomes an internal state, independent of circumstances. That is when you understand why Allah placed so much emphasis on remembrance. It was never meant to be decoration for the tongue. It was meant to be protection for the heart. This is how peace enters quietly, through remembrance, through surrender, through a heart that learns again and again to return its worries to Allah and rest in the certainty that nothing is unfolding without His knowledge or care. Why silence is often Allah's way of building you. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the hardest things for the human heart to accept is silence. We are comfortable with answers, even difficult ones, but silence makes us uneasy. When we make dua and do not see immediate change, the heart begins to ask questions. Did I do something wrong? Did I say it incorrectly? Is my prayer being delayed or ignored? These thoughts do not come from lack of faith, but from lack of understanding how Allah nurtures His servants. Silence is not absence. Silence is often preparation. Just as seeds grow underground before anything appears on the surface, Allah often works on the unseen parts of your life before allowing visible change to emerge. If everything changed immediately, the heart would remain shallow. But when Allah allows a period of quiet waiting, He deepens the heart, strengthens reliance, and removes attachment to outcomes. This is where many people become impatient. They assume that if nothing is happening, then nothing is working. But Allah does not rush because He is not reacting, He is planning. The quiet dua aligns you with that plan by teaching you how to wait without falling apart. It trains the heart to remain steady even when clarity is delayed. That steadiness is not weakness, it is maturity of faith. Notice how many people today feel uncomfortable with stillness. Silence makes them anxious. Waiting feels unbearable. They feel the need to constantly check, control, and monitor everything. But faith grows in the opposite direction. Faith grows when the heart learns to wait without demanding explanation. This does not mean you stop making effort. It means you stop demanding reassurance every step of the way. Allah knows when immediate relief would weaken you rather than help you. Sometimes if relief came too fast, the heart would never learn patience. Sometimes if answers came too clearly, trust would never deepen. So Allah allows silence not to punish but to shape. And the believer who understands this stops seeing waiting as rejection and starts seeing it as refinement. This is why the quiet dua is so powerful during silent periods. It does not try to force answers out of Allah. It does not complain about timing. It simply says, I trust you even now. And that statement alone protects the heart from bitterness. Over time, the believer begins to notice something subtle but profound. They are no longer anxious about how long things take. They are more concerned about remaining sincere while they wait. When silence is understood correctly, it stops being frightening. It becomes a sign that Allah is working beyond what the eye can see. The heart becomes softer, not harder. Gratitude becomes easier even without visible change. And when the moment finally arrives for doors to open, the heart is ready to walk through them without arrogance, panic, or attachment. That is why some of the strongest believers you will ever meet are not those whose lives were easy, but those who learned how to wait without losing faith. Silence taught them something noise never could, and the quiet dua kept them connected during every moment of that silence. When the answer comes as strength, not change, my dear brothers and sisters, many people believe that an answered dua must always look like an external change. They expect circumstances to shift, doors to open, or difficulties to disappear. But one of the most overlooked forms of answered dua is when life remains the same, yet you do not feel the same inside it. This is a form of mercy that many people fail to recognize because it does not arrive with excitement or visible signs. There are seasons in life when removing the problem would not benefit the heart as much as strengthening it. If every difficulty disappeared immediately, the heart would never learn resilience. It would remain dependent on ease rather than grounded in trust. This is why sometimes the answer to your dua is not a new situation, but a new capacity. You are given patience where you once had panic. You are given clarity where you once had confusion. You are given steadiness where you once felt overwhelmed. This is especially important to understand because many people today feel discouraged when nothing around them improves quickly. They begin to question their prayers, their sincerity, and even their worth. But what they fail to notice is that they are still standing. They are still functioning. They are still holding on to faith even when the weight has not been lifted. That strength did not come from nowhere. It was placed in the heart quietly, gradually, and deliberately. When the quiet dua is repeated consistently, it changes how the heart interprets difficulty. Hardship no longer feels like proof of abandonment. Delay no longer feels like rejection. Instead, the believer begins to see difficulty as a space where growth is taking place. This does not make pain disappear, but it gives pain meaning. And pain with meaning is easier to carry than pain without understanding. Many people underestimate how much strength they have gained because they are too focused on what they are still missing. They forget how they once reacted to smaller tests, how easily they used to break, how quickly they lost hope. Now, they endure heavier trials with more composure, even if they do not realize it. That transformation is not accidental. It is the result of a heart that has been shaped through reliance and remembrance. This is why some answers come quietly over time instead of all at once. A sudden solution may bring relief, but a gradual strengthening brings stability. Stability is what allows a believer to remain upright even when circumstances fluctuate. Life will always have seasons of ease and difficulty, but a stable heart does not rise and fall with every change. It remains anchored. There is also wisdom in the fact that when strength is given before change, the believer is protected from arrogance when ease eventually arrives. If everything improved instantly, the heart might forget where help truly came from. But when strength is developed first, gratitude deepens. The believer becomes more humble, more aware, and more appreciative of even small blessings. Another important point to understand is that strength does not mean the absence of emotion. It does not mean you stop feeling sadness, disappointment, or fatigue. Strength means you no longer allow those emotions to define your direction. You feel them, but you are not controlled by them. You experience hardship, but you are not consumed by it. That balance is a gift, and it is often the direct result of a dua that reshapes the heart rather than rearranging life immediately. This is why some people look calm even while carrying heavy responsibilities. It is not because their lives are easier. It is because their hearts have learned where to place their trust. They are no longer fighting reality. They are moving through it with awareness and acceptance. That kind of strength is not visible, but it is powerful. When you understand this, you stop measuring answered prayers only by outcomes. You begin to measure them by who you are becoming. You ask yourself whether you are more patient, more grounded, more trusting than before. If the answer is yes, then know that something is already changing, even if the situation has not yet shifted. The quiet dua does not promise instant relief. It promises growth that prepares you for relief when it arrives. And when it does arrive, you will receive it with a heart that can protect it, appreciate it, and use it wisely. That is why sometimes the greatest answer is not the removal of hardship, but the strengthening of the one who is facing it. One of the most difficult truths to accept in the journey of faith is that delay does not mean denial. The human heart naturally wants answers quickly. It wants reassurance. It wants signs that everything will be fine. But Allah, in His wisdom, sees beyond the moment you are standing in. He sees what you are asking for, what you are ready for, and what you are not yet prepared to carry. And sometimes, out of mercy, He delays what you want in order to protect you from what you cannot yet see. Many people assume that relief, if it is truly good, must arrive immediately. But immediate relief is not always beneficial. There are situations where receiving what you ask for too early would weaken your faith, harm your character, or pull you away from Allah without you realizing it. So Allah delays, not because He is distant, but because He is careful with you. He is shaping the timing so that when the answer arrives, it does not destroy you, confuse you, or lead you astray. This is where the quiet dua becomes essential. Loud desperation often demands speed, but quiet reliance accepts wisdom. When you repeat this simple dua consistently, you are not asking Allah to rush. You are asking Allah to guide the outcome in the best possible way. That shift in intention matters deeply. It transforms the heart from one that argues with destiny into one that walks alongside it with trust. Think about how many times you wanted something intensely, only to later realize that if it had happened earlier, it would have caused harm. At the time, the delay felt painful. It felt unfair, but with distance, clarity came. You saw that Allah was not withholding goodness. He was redirecting it. He was rearranging events in ways your limited vision could not detect. That is not coincidence. That is care. Many people today are exhausted not because life is cruel, but because they are fighting the timing of Allah. They want certainty before surrender. They want guarantees before trust. But faith does not work that way. Faith is built when you choose reliance even while answers are incomplete. This is uncomfortable for the ego, but nourishing for the soul. And the quiet dua supports this process by reminding the heart that Allah's timing is not random, nor careless, nor slow without reason. Another hidden mercy in delay is protection from emotional harm. Sometimes what you are asking for is tied to people, places, or situations that would damage your heart if they entered your life prematurely. Allah sees how attached you would become, how much you would rely on them instead of Him, and how deeply you would be hurt if things went wrong. So He delays, not to frustrate you, but to protect your heart from breaking in ways that would take years to heal. This is why some answers feel close but never quite arrive. The heart senses movement, yet the door does not open fully. In these moments, the quiet dua keeps you grounded. It stops you from chasing what is not meant for you yet. It prevents desperation from pushing you into choices that would cost you your peace. It teaches you how to wait with dignity rather than anxiety. It is also important to understand that delay often prepares you internally for responsibility. Not every blessing is light. Some blessings come with tests, expectations, and accountability. If Allah were to give you everything you ask for before your heart is mature enough, those blessings could become burdens. So Allah strengthens you first. He increases your patience. He deepens your humility. He refines your intentions. And only then does He allow certain doors to open. People who understand this stop rushing Allah. They stop comparing their timeline to others. They stop measuring their worth by how fast things happen. Instead, they focus on remaining sincere, consistent, and reliant. They trust that when Allah gives, He gives at the right time, in the right way, with the right impact. This lesson is difficult because it requires humility. It requires accepting that you do not know what is best for you at every moment, even when you think you do. But once the heart accepts this, something remarkable happens. The anxiety around delay softens. Waiting becomes less painful. Hope remains alive without desperation. That emotional balance is a gift many people search for but rarely find. The quiet dua supports you during this stage by anchoring your heart in trust rather than timelines. It reminds you that Allah is not testing your patience to break you, but to build you. And when relief finally arrives, it often arrives in a form that makes sense only after everything you endured beforehand. This is why those who wait with reliance often say, "Now I understand." They see that the delay was not empty time. It was preparation, it was protection, it was mercy unfolding slowly, and the quiet dua was the thread that kept them connected to Allah through every uncertain step. When you realize everything was quietly falling into place, there comes a moment in the believer's journey when something subtle but powerful happens. Nothing dramatic changes on the outside. Life does not suddenly slow down. Problems do not instantly disappear. But inside, the heart begins to see differently. You start to realize that you were never abandoned, never ignored, and never forgotten. Everything was unfolding quietly with wisdom, even when you thought nothing was happening. This realization usually comes after a long season of waiting, after unanswered questions, after nights where dua felt heavy and silence felt confusing. At that stage, many people think faith means forcing optimism. But true faith is something deeper. True faith is when the heart stops arguing with destiny and starts cooperating with it. That shift does not happen overnight. It is built slowly through reliance, remembrance, and quiet dua. The believer who reaches this stage no longer measures Allah's care by speed. They measure it by depth. They understand that fast answers are not always kind answers, and delayed answers are not always harsh. They begin to see how certain doors did not open because opening them would have cost them their peace. They recognize that some losses were actually protection and some delays were actually redirection. At this point, the heart stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begins to ask, "What is this teaching me?" That is a powerful transformation. It turns pain into purpose. It turns waiting into worship. It turns confusion into humility. And once the heart reaches this level of understanding, it is no longer easily shaken by uncertainty. This is also when the believer notices how much they have changed. The same things that once triggered panic now feel manageable. The same delays that once caused frustration now feel tolerable. The same fears that once dominated the mind now come and go without taking over. Not because life became easy, but because the heart became anchored. The quiet dua plays a central role in this transformation. It trains the heart to release control repeatedly, not once, but every day. Each time you return a matter to Allah, you strengthen that muscle of trust. Over time, reliance stops feeling forced. It becomes natural. The heart learns where safety truly lies. Many people search for peace by rearranging their external world. They think a new situation, a new place, a new relationship, or a new opportunity will finally calm them. But peace does not come from perfect circumstances. It comes from a settled heart. And a settled heart is built through knowing who holds your future. This is why the believer who understands this lesson walks differently through life. They still plan, but they do not panic when plans change. They still hope, but they do not collapse when hope is delayed. They still feel emotions, but those emotions no longer control their direction. They move forward with effort and humility, trusting that whatever unfolds has already passed through divine wisdom. At this stage, even unanswered du'as no longer feel wasted. The believer understands that no sincere prayer ever disappears. Some are answered by change, some are answered by protection, some are answered by strength, and some are answered later in ways that only make sense with time. That understanding brings a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken by temporary setbacks. The heart also becomes gentler with itself. It stops blaming itself for every delay. It stops assuming punishment where there is none. It stops demanding perfection in faith. Instead, it focuses on sincerity, and sincerity is always enough. This lesson teaches the believer that trust is not passive. It is active patience. It is showing up to dua even when answers are unclear. It is continuing to rely even when clarity is delayed. It is choosing faith repeatedly, especially when emotions fluctuate. Eventually, there comes a moment where the believer looks back and sees the full picture. They see how events aligned. They see how timing protected them. They see how the quiet dua carried them through moments they once thought would break them. And in that moment, gratitude deepens in a way words cannot fully capture. That is when the heart finally rests. Not because the journey ended, but because the heart learned how to travel without fear. That is the true change the simple dua brings. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention, but it leaves nothing inside you the same. And when you reach this understanding, you no longer rush Allah. You no longer doubt His care. You no longer fear the unseen. You walk forward knowing that whatever comes next has already been handled with wisdom, mercy, and purpose far beyond what you can imagine. That is when you realize that everything was changing quietly all along. My dear brothers and sisters, if there is one thing to carry with you from this reminder, let it be this. Not every change needs to be loud to be real. Some of the most meaningful transformations happen quietly, without announcement, without witnesses, without immediate results. And that does not make them weak, it makes them sincere. If you are still waiting, still hoping, still repeating this simple dua, even when nothing seems to be shifting, know that you are not standing still. Something is being arranged in ways you cannot yet see. Your heart is being prepared. Your trust is being deepened. Your path is being aligned with wisdom far greater than your fears. Do not rush Allah. Do not compare your journey. Do not underestimate what quiet reliance is doing inside you. One day, you will look back and realize that what you thought was silence was actually protection, preparation, and mercy unfolding slowly. Until then, keep returning your worries to the one who never loses what is placed in His care. Ya Allah, we place our hearts before you just as they are, tired yet trusting, uncertain yet hopeful. Ya Allah, accept our quiet du'as, the ones we whisper when no one else hears, and the ones we struggle to put into words. Ya Allah, ease our hearts before you, ease our situations, and grant us trust that is stronger than fear and patience that does not break under delay. Ya Allah, do not leave us to our own strength, even for a moment, and guide us through what we understand and what we do not. Make our reliance sincere, our waiting meaningful, and our endings better than our beginnings. Ameen.